The title of this story is a loser transmigrates into another world as a stronger SSS rank healer. Our story begins in the room of our protagonist. Today is his birthday, with video game posters covering his walls and a cake placed on the table. He plays the Happy Birthday song using his phone. Afterwards, he begins to slice the cake. He takes a bite, and immediately, the awful taste shows on his face. Angry, he throws the cake into the trash, thinking that the 29 yuan he spent was wasted, wishing he had used it on gacha instead. Then he looks at his phone, staring at a selfie post where he pretended to thank his so-called friend for the birthday cake. As he stares at the screen, he thinks about how he wishes there was someone who truly cared for him. In his deep loneliness, he leans hard against the chair, causing it to tip and making him lose balance. He falls onto the floor, sad, thinking he would already be happy if someone gave him even a simple, "get well soon," whenever he got sick. But suddenly he feels dizzy, losing balance because of his fever, and he thinks how sad it is that no one is around to help him with something so simple. Suddenly, he hears a strange sound, and the voice of a terrified man begging for help. A gigantic mouth filled with sharp teeth suddenly appears, its sheer size freezing him in fear. At that moment, a young woman with dark hair tied in a ponytail enters the scene. Our main character suddenly becomes a white-haired young man being attacked by the creature, but a powerful red lightning bolt strikes the monster. Wrapped in overwhelming red energy, the monster is slowly sucked in until its hand completely disappears. Shocked, our protagonist watches what is happening, wondering if he has transmigrated. Suddenly, a woman with large bouncing cocomelons arrives behind him, calling out his name. Furious, she yells at him, then lands a heavy punch, scolding him for being reckless in the interdimensional space. With the sheer force of the hit, he flies into the snow as the girl demands to know if he has a death wish. Lying on the ground, injured, he slowly realizes the full truth. His new name is Jiang Xiao. It suddenly hits him. It's just like the cliché stories. He has been brought to another world. This new world is called the Star Martial Continent, a land filled with dazzling azure energy. The biggest difference here is the existence of portals connecting to other dimensions full of wondrous creatures. Aside from the monsters, there is also a mysterious force called Star Force that flows from the portals. Because of this, some fortunate people are able to see and sense this power. They are called the Awakened. The potential of an Awakened is measured by the number of star slots they possess on their map, and the body our protagonist currently inhabits belongs to Jiang Xiao, an Awakened with a pitiful 9 star slots. He is once again called by Han Zhongzu, asking him how long he plans to sit there in the snow. He doesn't answer right away. This is his stepsister, a genius with 30 star slots, practically considered heaven's chosen. His sister helps him up from the snow, complaining about the cold, when suddenly another figure approaches them. A woman's voice shouts that she has finally found them. The newcomer runs toward them, asking if Shushu is alright, hugging her friend tightly. Our protagonist remembers that she is Sha Yan, a young woman with 28 star slots. Sha Yan walks over to him and teasingly calls him, Little Pai Pai. She also scolds him for running around in the interdimensional space, forcing him to apologize in embarrassment. Sha Yan tells him how worried his sister was, and he promises it won't happen again. He understands that his sister brought him here to train, because the original owner of the body became arrogant after awakening. On a hunting mission, he got lost and tried to escape from 2 monsters, but was saved by Han Zhongzu. But suddenly, our protagonist freezes as he realizes something is wrong. He remembers that only one of the 2 monsters was killed by his sister. In an instant, the second white monster appears before the group, furiously attacking them. Terrified, our protagonist shouts for everyone to be careful. His sister pulls him down to the ground to dodge, and they fall, with her arms wrapped around his head. This makes him blush furiously, unable to believe how close his face is to her cocomelons. His sister then unleashes her ability, sharp claws of energy extending as she attacks. With a powerful strike she calls Desolate Wind, she charges at the monster. But she immediately calls out her friend's name, Sha Yan, for help in the fight. Smiling, Sha Yan replies that she got the message. She activates her scorching flame ability, and her sword erupts in fire. With all her might, she swings the massive fire-clad blade toward the creature. The attack lands directly on the white monster, making it cry out in pain. But even so, the fire still fails to pierce its thick hide. Nevertheless, the impact is strong enough to send Sha Yan flying. She crashes into the snow, slightly surprised that the monster wasn't wounded immediately. With a mocking grin, she comments that the monster's skin is thick and its level is high. The white monster, smoke billowing from its mouth, glares at her with intense fury. But she remains unfazed, taunting it, saying it can show off its courage all it wants. At that moment, her weapon flares with a brilliant crimson energy, showcasing its power. With a mighty strike, Sha Yan charges at the monster again, and finally, she manages to wound it, causing its blood to spill. From the force of the strike, the monster crashed to the ground, completely defeated and unable to fight back. Our protagonist watched his sister in awe, impressed that the two of them had taken down the creature in just 2 attacks. His face flushed red as his cheek pressed against his sister's chest, marveling that this was the power of an awakened. The brown-haired girl let out a sigh after the intense battle, then turned to her friend to celebrate, saying their teamwork was perfect. But to her shock, she saw that our protagonist was still in his sister's arms, and out of jealousy she pulled them apart, telling them that the sibling moment had gone on long enough. She warned that the scent of blood would attract more monsters, so they needed to collect the star beads and leave immediately. Our protagonist then remembered the star beads inside the monsters that contained their abilities, realizing that the skills used in battle came from absorbing these beads. The brown-haired girl mockingly called him an academic failure and beckoned him over so she could teach him how to examine monsters, otherwise he'd drag his sister down in their future exams. Holding a blue bead, she explained that no matter what type of monster it was, this thing was always in the same place. He asked if it was in the brain, and she confirmed, saying maybe he wasn't completely hopeless yet. She further explained that the skulls of Snow Qilin were very tough and required sharp tools, and that it was necessary to find the right angle to extract the star beads. While preparing the knife, she told him to find the proper angle and force it open. With a hard stab, she plunged the knife into the monster, smiling as blood splattered. Slowly, she pried it open and shoved her hand inside, rummaging through its innards, but found nothing and regretfully noted that this Snow Qilin didn't have a bead. She then handed the knife to our protagonist and ordered him to practice on another monster. He thought to himself that in his 25 years of life, he had never even killed a fish, but now he had to do this. Even so, he remembered how dangerous this world was and how he almost died upon arriving, so with full determination he prepared himself, knowing he wouldn't survive if he couldn't handle this task. The girl explained that neither of the 2 Snow Qilin had star beads and that such items were rare, requiring both talent and luck to find. Our protagonist covered his mouth, nauseated, but said he understood the lesson. His sister asked if he was all right, noticing that he seemed to have suddenly matured. She wondered if his change was because of the slap she had given him earlier. She then called him Xiao Pai, and he immediately turned to her with a serious expression. His sister handed him a star bead and said it came from a white ghost shaman, telling him to absorb it. Our protagonist was captivated by the intense glow of the blue star bead in his sister's hand and thought that with his meager slots, he would only ever be able to have the most basic techniques in his lifetime. He decided not to waste any time and began absorbing the energy from the star bead. His body was enveloped in a strong blue energy as he lifted the bead. Suddenly, he was transported to a strange place, confused about where he was. A window screen appeared showing his information, and he wondered if this was the inner star chart vision. He realized he was inside his own consciousness and noticed that perhaps he had more than one star map. Soon after, a detection message appeared before him as it analyzed the situation, showing on the window screen that there were 2 techniques within the bead, asking if he wanted to combine and absorb them. He was shocked that he could merge 2 techniques into a single star slot, and without hesitation, he accepted the fusion since it was an ability like no other. Upon his decision, the star bead shattered into countless fragments and its energy burst forth. In reality, his sister asked if he had obtained any new star techniques, but before he could answer, Sha Yan warned that danger was approaching. The group prepared again as their companion explained that a hunting squad was drawing near. At that very moment, a new group in uniform arrived, and one member reported that another team had already cracked open the Qilin skulls. Another member recalled passing by a destroyed Qilin nest and asked if it was the same group. Their captain cursed their bad luck for not finding any young Qilin or star beads and worried about the family head. With a malicious grin, their leader told the squad to continue searching the white ghost shaman Cobb, adding that if they encountered another group, they would simply take their star beads. As they moved away, our protagonist group remained hidden behind a large boulder, quietly observing the other team's movements. After examining the opposing group and defeating the monsters, they continued to leave, leaving footprints behind in the soft snow. Meanwhile, our protagonist group breathed a sigh of relief once the others were gone. Curious, our protagonist asked why the other group wanted to steal the white ghost shamans and their bids. Sia explained that white ghost shamans were extremely rare compared to ordinary white ghosts, and in an entire clan of white ghosts, only one could become a shaman. Furthermore, she revealed that a shaman's bid contained healing abilities, the rarest of all. A regular white ghost star bid could be sold for no less than 500 to 800, but a white ghost shaman star bid was worth 200,000. Our protagonist was stunned upon learning the price of the bids, and his sister warned him to be careful not only against monsters but also against people within the interdimensional space, because awakened individuals possessed rounding beads and their star force was even stronger than that of monsters. It was then he realized that he might also be attacked by fellow humans, driven purely by the desire for power. Deeply disheartened, he understood why they were always hiding, unable to believe he had ended up in such a ruthless place. Suddenly, his sister smacked him on the head and said they needed to leave. She also reminded him that the sun was setting, and since both he and Kian's star force were low, they had to return to base. They began walking back, once again leaving their footprints in the snowy path. As they moved through the frozen landscape, snow continued to fall on the three awakened. The elder sister noticed that the young man was unusually quiet and thought it might be because he hadn't obtained a new technique. She tried to encourage him, telling him it was fine if he didn't get a star technique and not to carry the burden too heavily. But our protagonist smiled and explained that he was only shocked at how brutal this world truly was. They pressed on, walking along the mountainside despite the relentless snowstorm. Then suddenly, something stirred beneath the snow in a strange and eerie way, and moments later, the face of a white gull with sharp teeth emerged right before them. To their horror, an entire horde of white gulls appeared, surrounding them from all directions. The monsters glared at them, eyes gleaming with hostility and expressions filled with rage. At that moment, the three prepared themselves to face the enemies closing in through the snow. Sia was shocked to count 16 white ghosts, wondering where such a number had come from, while her sister was equally puzzled, as these creatures usually appeared alone and never traveled in groups. Sia declared that there must be a shaman leading this clan. Our protagonist, surprised, asked if white ghost shamans weren't supposed to be extremely rare, and Sia agreed, adding that it was not normal for monsters to organize large-scale attacks against humans. In the very next instant, the entire horde charged to begin their assault. One white ghost roared fiercely, baring its sharp fangs to intimidate them. Without wasting a moment, Sia drew her sword, engulfed in flames. She unleashed her scorching flame technique, releasing a powerful fiery strike against the monsters, hitting one directly with tremendous force. Meanwhile, her sister shielded her and used her desolate wind technique to attack the horde, quickly preparing her shattered void as well, gathering crimson energy in her hand. Her devastating attack struck the monsters before them, creating a massive explosion of energy. But one monster slipped past their defense and charged directly at our protagonist, leaping with claws extended to strike the defenseless youth. At that critical moment, the elder sister looked at him with unwavering determination. Without hesitation, she sacrificed herself, leaping in front of her brother to take the fatal blow. The monster's claws tore into her back, gravely wounding her in front of everyone. The impact hurled them both through the snow, sending them tumbling across the frozen ground. Their friend witnessed everything and screamed in terror, calling out Shushu's name. Our protagonist fell into the snow, his unconscious sister lying before him, not knowing what to do as he watched blood spread across the whiteness. Stunned and panicked, he desperately cried out her name. But then he remembered the new star technique he had obtained, the blessing. Without hesitation, he used the ability on his sister, and her body was enveloped in a warm, radiant light. The young woman stirred, dazed and bewildered, wondering what the strange sensation was. She felt her body grow light, as if she were floating in an ocean filled with star force. The wound on her back began to glow and rapidly healed under the new ability's power. Her whole body flushed with warmth, like bathing in a soothing hot spring. Her eyes widened in astonishment at the unfamiliar feeling until her face turned red, and she whispered that her entire body felt unbearably hot. While still lying down, the young woman felt an overwhelming heat surging through her body, causing her to make strange expressions under the influence of the healing spell. Our protagonist was bewildered, wondering what was happening to her, but as his attention remained fixed on her, several giant creatures began approaching them. In an instant, 3 monsters attacked simultaneously. The girl's eyes glowed with azure energy, and her expression suddenly turned deadly serious. She immediately stood up, her body enveloped in a faint blue aura. Our protagonist was utterly astonished, witnessing the immense power radiating from his sister. She then summoned her star map, which gleamed with a golden light. Extending her hand, she began gathering an enormous amount of crimson energy for her attack. From there, a powerful surge of energy erupted and struck one of the white Killen directly. She remained standing, her face cold and composed after unleashing the devastating strike. The ability detonated, producing a terrifying explosion that instantly annihilated the monster. A system window appeared, notifying her that she had gained 1 skill point from slaying the creature. Shocked, our protagonist wondered what this new feature meant. Moments later, their friend arrived running, relieved to see Zuzu safe. The elder sister, energy already building up in her hand, quickly reminded her friend to focus on the enemy. In a flash, flames swelled from her palm. She unleashed her explosive flame, striking one of the white monsters directly. The sheer force of the impact sent the beast flying, crashing into the snow in agony. The elder sister then warned, full of concern, that their strength would not last long, and they had to prioritize killing the shaman. In the midst of the horde, the shaman emerged, holding a staff while surrounded by other monsters. It bared its sharp fangs, ready to continue the assault, and began using its blessing ability to aid its allies. A wounded monster was enveloped in a bluish aura, and its injuries rapidly healed. Within moments, the creature had fully recovered thanks to the shaman's healing magic. Our protagonist realized that the shaman was nullifying all the damage dealt to its companions, and he immediately shouted to his sister to use Savage Wind to launch him into the air. Without hesitation, the young woman raised her hand and unleashed a powerful gust. The fierce wind wrapped around our protagonist's body and propelled him skyward. Now airborne, he desperately scanned the battlefield for the shaman. His eyes locked onto the ground below, and at last, he spotted the shaman along with its 2 guards in the snow. He shouted that he had found it, declaring its location to be 200 meters away. His sister responded that she received the information, then firmly planted her feet on the snowy ground, preparing to move. With a serious expression, she dashed at full speed toward the direction indicated by her brother. Our protagonist followed closely behind, determined to assist in the joint assault. Meanwhile, their friend also charged forward with sword in hand. Shouting fiercely as she attacked, Xia Yan's entire body became engulfed in blazing flames. She unleashed her fiery power, the heat so intense that the shaman immediately sensed it. However, her attack merely passed through the enemy, and Xia shouted in alarm that it was only a decoy. At that exact moment, our protagonist leapt toward the true target, yelling that the real shaman was right in front of him. The shaman turned to face him with a calm expression, showing no trace of fear. Instantly, the monster and its two guards lunged at him in a coordinated strike. Seeing the oncoming assault, the two young women panicked and cried out his name in unison. At that very moment, our protagonist braced himself to defend against the ferocious attack of the beasts. They saw the body of our protagonist split apart, but he instantly used a skill called Dissipate. Sia was shocked at what she witnessed, realizing that he had just used the very same technique he absorbed from the white ghost shaman. His sister was equally bewildered, unable to understand how such a thing was possible. She distinctly remembered that the technique her brother had absorbed was clearly a buff spell, not a dispel magic like what he had just used against the monster. With a smirk, our protagonist mocked the shaman, telling it not to get too cocky. Leaping from behind, he added, "Did you really think you're the only one who can play tricks?" And with that, he finished off the monster, earning 1 point and a new ability in dagger mastery. The shaman's body finally collapsed into the snow, while its remaining guard froze in place, staring. Standing firm, our protagonist turned toward the last guard, ready to end the battle. But to his surprise, the beast, snarling and baring its teeth, suddenly spun around and fled. Letting out a long breath, he muttered that it was a close call. Just then, his companions arrived and anxiously asked if he was all right. His sister called him out, insisting that he owed them an explanation. Embarrassed, he averted his gaze, unsure of what to say. Instead, he suggested they talk about it once they were somewhere safe. Hours passed, and they lit a fire to ward off the night's bitter cold. Sitting around the flames, the atmosphere felt unusually heavy. His sister finally spoke, pointing out that this meant he had a dual-star ability, with one of them being medic type. Puzzled, he wondered why she reacted that way and if she wasn't supposed to be happy for him. Then Sia asked if he even understood what it meant to be an awakened medic type. She explained that those who could absorb techniques had a much higher chance of acquiring powerful abilities, but combat types like him normally had no affinity for such skills. She added that out of every 100 awakened, only one turned out to be a healer. Excited, he asked, "Isn't that a good thing? That means I'm valuable, right?" But his sister responded seriously, saying he still didn't grasp the true weight of it. She showed him a badge, explaining that a standard team required 4 members, and every team desperately wanted a medic. Even with just a single healing skill, they determined the durability and survival of the entire group. Stunned, he finally realized the significance of his new role. Yet when he saw the worry in their eyes, he reassured them that since his aptitude was low, he wouldn't become a target. Still, he admitted that because he was a rare type, he might be forced into dangerous missions. His sister nodded in agreement. She then declared that she would make sure he enrolled in school to become a doctor or healer in a hospital, leaving him utterly speechless. Troubled, he thought to himself that he had imagined walking the path of a god, only to end up on the road toward working in a hospital. Sia couldn't help but laugh, teasing that his sister was being way too overprotective. His sister lowered her head, saying she understood what her friend meant, but her hesitation remained. Silence fell over the group as our protagonist quietly observed his sister, sensing the depth of her worry, and a knot of unease tightened in his chest. To break the tension, he reminded them that he was only 16, and Sia agreed that the future was still far ahead. Pulling her friend closer, Sia said they should count the spoils from the hunt instead. She then reminded him to get some rest since training would continue the next day. For the first time, our protagonist smiled sincerely, touched by how it felt to be cared for. The night passed quietly on the snowy mountain, until a strange noise suddenly shattered the calm. Out of nowhere, a gaping maw lined with razor-sharp teeth emerged, a sign that the danger wasn't over yet. Instantly, our protagonist positioned himself at the front of the camp. Sia called out, telling him not to charge recklessly and to use his wits. After all, he was smarter than the beast. The monstrous creature stood before him, covered in white fur, growling with fury. Sia promised that if he managed to endure for 30 seconds, she would reward him with hot tea. With a firm expression, he tightened his grip on his weapon and braced himself for battle. A giant monster roared right in front of our protagonist. At that very moment, it lunged with its razor-sharp claws, but he didn't flinch. With swift movement, he dodged the fierce strike, though the sheer impact left a stinging cut across his cheek. The massive beast wasted no time and prepared for another assault. In the next instant, it charged forward with astonishing speed. Our protagonist braced himself and blocked the vicious attack with his arms. Suddenly, a surge of azure energy burst out from him as the two girls watched anxiously from a distance. Meanwhile, the friend asked his sister if she was still upset with the boy for absorbing the pearl. She admitted she was worried, since he only had 9-star slots. The friend nodded in understanding, recognizing the desire to fill those slots with rare skills, but warned that there were always trade-offs. His sister continued, explaining that for the longest time, their most common enemies were the white ghosts. Just like them, their companion would have to accept a new star ability in order to fight back. At that moment, a system window appeared, displaying the details of a new technique called Azure Flash. Without hesitation, he unleashed it against the monster. The force of the ability pushed him slightly backward, but he planted his feet firmly into the ground. He recalled that he had just absorbed a star pearl from the white ghost, and that he still had another pearl hidden from the monster's sight. Curious, he checked the system requirements to upgrade his new ability. The panel explained that techniques could be enhanced with points and additional star pearls. He saw that he had 2 skill points left to use. Excited, he carefully reviewed his options to strengthen himself right away. He remembered that in this world, most people's skills were fixed, but his had the potential to grow infinitely. A screen displayed his abilities, including the newly gained Azure Flash and Resistance. He calculated that moving from bronze to silver would require 10 bronze pearls. Determined, he immediately absorbed the power of the extra pearl. A confirmation message popped up, showing his star power had risen. Both his Azure Flash and Resistance reached the peak of bronze class, then advanced together into silver class, boosting his strength dramatically. Back in the fight, the monster roared again and lunged with its claws. Behind him, his star chart glowed intensely, and his eyes shone a bright azure as he focused all his energy on the battle. His sister shouted, asking if he had gone mad, urging him to dodge. But instead, he clenched his fist tighter, radiating sheer determination. He charged forward, his hand enveloped in a brilliant azure aura, and unleashed a devastating strike at the beast. His energy cut across the snowy field, leaving behind a trail of destruction. The force sent the monster flying, crashing into the snow but still glaring back at him with terrifying resolve. Just then, Sia hurled her flaming sword to finish it off. The blazing weapon struck with overwhelming force, and the monster was finally defeated, collapsing lifelessly into the snow. From afar, his sister called out in concern, rushing over and demanding to see his star chart, her tone sharp with suspicion. He revealed it, showing 2 radiant stars at its center. With a calm smile, he told them that he trusted them enough to share his secret. He admitted that his power might be shocking, but he believed in them because they were on the same side. Sia looked guilty and turned her gaze away, unable to respond. His sister, however, stared at him seriously, silently processing everything she had just learned. To everyone's shock, she suddenly lowered her head and apologized to him, sorrow filling her eyes. Then, with a heavy voice, she admitted that she too had been hiding something very important from him. Our protagonist was completely bewildered by his sister's sudden apology. It was then that she revealed the Void Shutter ability had originally been left behind by their parents for him. He asked if that was the same power that devoured monsters, and quickly assured her there was no need to apologize. They were both children of their parents, so it didn't matter who had been given the inheritance. He added that her talent far surpassed his own anyway, and it was likely he wouldn't have been able to absorb such a technique in the first place. But his sister countered, saying that in just the past 2 days, he had already absorbed 2 powerful star pearls, and since this was a gold-quality skill, surely he could have managed it too. Her eyes were filled with sadness as she spoke. He thought to himself that she looked so mature, but in truth she seemed even more confused than he had been before his rebirth. He ended by saying she was giving him far too much credit. His humble words took her by surprise. He explained that it was one star power level that determined what quality of abilities could be absorbed. What's more, even if he had acquired the Void Breaker, he wouldn't have been able to use it. He admitted that he was at the very lowest rank, and even casting Asher Flash had drained nearly half of his energy. If he were to use Void Breaker, he'd only end up useless and wasting energy. The two girls listened closely to his reasoning, and it seemed they finally understood his point. He realized that because this body had been so weak originally, his sister had been forced to become strong to protect him. Deeply moved by his insight, she called out his name, tears welling in her eyes. But then, puffing up with pride, he suddenly boasted that clearly, he was the brains of the operation, only to be called an idiot by both girls. Sia grabbed him by the collar and praised him for finally maturing, then asked whether his star skills had any limit in how far they could rise. He answered that his growth came from pearls and training, and so far he had felt no limit, only that he lacked strength. That was when Sia understood that both skills and star power needed to be trained hand in hand. She sighed, wishing she could just use her money to immediately level up his abilities. But then her gaze hardened, clearly about to say something important. She warned him that his talent must never be exposed, and once he entered school, he would need a squad. Quietly listening, he suggested that he simply join their squad right away. Both girls froze in shock, falling silent. Confused, he wondered what he had said wrong. The two of them kept staring, processing the idea. Suddenly, Sia seemed to realize something and said she had forgotten one option. Later that night, the group set up camp beneath the bright stars, surrounded by snow. Holding a warm cup in her hands, Sia explained that his talent was both a gift and a problem. Around the fire, she said that because of his abilities, he was destined for a great fate. He and his sister listened quietly as she suggested that he skip the early years and join their squad directly in the final year. He was stunned by the unexpected proposal. She explained that this way, they could train him properly at the university, and with his help, their missions would be far safer. With their abilities, protecting him until graduation would be no problem. As for the high-quality skills, they could simply claim that they had been left behind by his parents. His sister agreed, adding that they should first raise the quality of his blessing skill to silver rank. Sia promised to spend 2 million on star pearls to guarantee the upgrade. Inside, he was filled with anticipation. Did this mean he could officially join their group? Was the decision already set? Smiling, he celebrated at the thought that from this day on, he would be an official member of their squad. But his joy was immediately cut short when Sia said things weren't that simple. She revealed the major problem with the plan. Their squad was already full. His eyes widened in shock, utterly stunned by the revelation, unable to grasp what was happening. Our protagonist shouted in disbelief, "Are you serious? After everything, your team is already full." Sia explained that there was a man in their squad who constantly chased after her sister, a certain Gao Junwei. He was undeniably strong, a close combat awakened, but his personality was terrible, selfish and arrogant. During one mission in another dimension, one of their companions almost died because of the chaos he caused. She went on to explain that both he and Xu Xiao came from powerful families, and because of their pride, neither was willing to back down. In the end, she and the protagonist's sister became the victims of their conflict, and the entire team almost collapsed. Sia said that the protagonist's strength could help rebalance their squad. And because he was a rare healer, he was more than qualified to replace one of the problematic members. In a lighter tone, she even revealed that her original plan was to leave the team together with Zuzu. But leaving came at too high a price. It was nearly impossible to find two other strong allies within the academy. As the snow fell gently around them, the group's serious conversation continued by the warmth of the fire. Sia explained that the team had been training together for 2 years, and with the exams approaching, no one wanted to disrupt the status quo. She clarified that she was talking about high-level people, not ordinary squads. She added that because she and Xu Xiao were both so strong, countless weaker students wanted to join them. But if they chose to leave, they would have to endure the wrath of both their families and the academy due to the rankings. She then admitted that she had been blocking Gao Junwei for a year now, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep it up. Firmly, she said that no matter the reason, they could no longer work with that man. That was why she had kept the squad intact, so that the protagonist could step in and deliver the surprise that would finally drive their rival out. The protagonist listened silently, his expression growing serious as he understood the enormous opportunity before him. Sia assured him that she would handle everything at the academy so that he could skip directly to the final year without issue. The fire continued to crackle as the group faced a critical decision. The siblings sat in thought, while their friend waited for an answer. His sister's face showed concern at the pressure being placed on him. She stood and told him that it was fine, that he didn't need to worry so much. Sia agreed, saying he was only beginning to mature and didn't need to rush. But the protagonist firmly declared that he wanted to try, not only for them but also for his own survival. His sister was stunned by the determination and maturity he now showed. With full conviction, he announced that he would do it, that he wanted to join their squad. Sia was deeply moved, calling out his name as pride welled in her chest. 7 days passed, and the land remained shrouded in snow. On the ground lay a bloodied creature, its white fur stained crimson. The protagonist stood before it, as a system notification appeared, declaring his dagger mastery had increased. A confident smile spread across his face. At last, he had managed to take down a white ghost alone and level up. From a distance, Sia watched, admiration clear in her eyes. Shivering, she teased him, asking if he could use his star power to warm her up. A bit embarrassed, he explained that his skill was meant for healing, not for heat. Still, he cast a blessing on her, and she was immediately enveloped in a warm golden aura. Delight and comfort lit up her expression as she basked in the soothing warmth. Meanwhile, the protagonist and his sister stood side by side, both unable to believe what they were witnessing. His sister reminded him that there was only 1 week left before classes began, and they needed to leave soon. He raised his hand, signaling his understanding, ready for whatever came next. But suddenly, a massive surge of blue energy streaked across the sky and exploded nearby, shaking the ground violently and startling them all. His sister's eyes widened in shock as she asked what that was. The protagonist immediately shouted that it was a flare, someone was calling for help, and warned everyone to be cautious. With a serious gaze, he asked if they should head toward the signal. But his sister stopped him, explaining that the flare was meant for the guardian team of the area. Her voice was stern as she told him it was a warning of danger, and it would be wiser for them to leave. Meanwhile, a group of explorers was running in panic, desperately trying to escape from a herd of massive white monsters. Among them, one man clutched something tightly in his arms as he fled for his life. The older sister shouted for everyone to take cover, warning that danger was rushing straight toward them. At the same moment, one of the explorers told his captain that they could no longer escape the monsters. Another member began to panic, crying out that they would all die before the guardians even arrived. Their leader, tense and desperate, prepared a fire skill, a small bowl of energy forming at his fingertips. He hurled a blazing burst of flame, but it struck his own comrade instead. Shocked, the man who was hit screamed in confusion, calling out to his captain, unable to understand what had just happened. But the captain only sneered, declaring that he would report his subordinate's death as a heroic sacrifice in battle. The unfortunate man was left behind, surrounded by the enraged herd of white ghosts. He screamed in terror and despair, reaching out his hand as he watched his former companions abandon him to his cruel fate. Slowly, the hulking beasts with snowy fur closed in on him. Meanwhile, the protagonist group watched from afar, hidden behind a large boulder. The protagonist's eyes widened at the sight of so many creatures, muttering that it looked like a parade of ghosts. His older sister recognized the men and said angrily that they were the same group they had seen earlier. The explorers. Captain clutched the white ghost shaman Yang Lang, admitting that it was the cause of all this chaos. Hearing this, the protagonist immediately asked his sister what they should do. The girl told him to wait, explaining that she suspected there were two shaman clans in the area. Suddenly, two shamans in crimson cloaks appeared, sliding down the snowy mountain. That was when the sister realized they needed star pearls from the white shamans. She declared that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity they could not let slip away. In that instant, she shouted, calling for their comrade Xia Yan to act. Xia Yan leapt swiftly, launching a sneak attack on one of the shaman monsters. But instead of striking true, his blade cut only into the arm of a white ghost. At the same time, the shaman unleashed an azure flash, its powerful strike slamming into Xia and hurling her into a tree. She cried out in pain from the brutal impact. Seeing Xia's suffering, the protagonist screamed in fear and desperation. Without hesitation, he crushed a crimson crystal in his hand, activating a skill. He invoked his blessing, and a surge of red energy flew into his wounded ally. Xia's entire body glowed crimson, and a strange moan escaped her lips as the healing power washed over her. Her face flushed, filled with pure ecstasy, as she exclaimed how amazing the sensation was. But another monster seized the moment, charging at her while she was distracted. Yet she showed no fear. Instead, she smiled brightly and welcomed the beast into battle. She rushed forward to meet it head-on, her blazing sword carving fiery trails across the snow. The protagonist was stunned, blurting out that she had gone mad, while his sister complained that it was only a waste of energy. With a wry smile, the protagonist thought that perhaps his blessing had worked a little too well on her. His sister, however, spoke firmly, saying that having a healer in the group was making Xia Yan far too reckless and careless. Because of this, she insisted that they could not rely on him. She resolved to lure the ghost shaman herself and asked her younger brother to guard her back as they prepared for the next move. Suddenly, one of the white beasts let out a roar and charged straight at the protagonist. Its sharp fangs nearly lunged at his face, but he quickly activated his decoy skill. Now face to face with the creature, he suddenly reappeared behind it, startling the monster as he prepared to strike. With a swift motion, he drove his sword into the creature's head with all his strength. Afterward, he stood behind the beast, his eyes flashing as a system notification appeared. He had gained another skill point. The protagonist wondered why he kept receiving rewards even when his companions were the ones doing most of the killing. Meanwhile, Xia, still shivering from the cold, asked him to use his blessing again to warm her up. But he shouted back in frustration that he wasn't a vending machine and that his star power was nearly depleted. At that moment, one of the shaman creatures activated a skill that boosted its speed. The white ghost immediately began fleeing down the icy mountain at an incredible pace. Seeing it escape, the young man shouted desperately that they had to stop it. Xia, gripping her flaming sword, declared that it wouldn't get away from her. But as she rushed forward, she tripped on a rock and fell face first into the snow. The protagonist's jaw dropped at the sight. His older sister complained that she had almost hit the monster with her wild wind. The shaman continued sprinting, moving farther and faster with every second. This made the protagonist start thinking of a way to slow the creature down. He remembered what his sister had said, that his blessing was unusual. His healing skill also caused a strange sensation of comfort. He recalled Xia's unusual reaction when she was healed, and a confident smile crossed his face. If that was the case, then perhaps he could use it in another way. He cast his blessing in a new manner, releasing it toward the fleeing beast. The pink energy struck the monster, and it immediately froze in shock. Its expression changed, its face flushing red, while small pink hearts appeared around its body. Another shaman looked utterly confused, unable to understand what was happening to its companion. In that instant, the older sister seized the opportunity and launched her attack. A powerful blast of blue and red energy struck the two beasts. When the attack was over, she stood tall, triumph shining in her eyes. The white ghosts lay dead, their bodies scattered across the snow. Xia let out a deep breath, collapsed into the snow, and said that was a close call. She praised the protagonist for cleverly using his blessing like a poison. But her older sister immediately smacked her on the head for being careless. The girl apologized while clutching her head, promising not to repeat her mistake. Moments later, the sister approached the corpse of the explorer who had been left behind. She confirmed he was truly dead, while the protagonist silently observed. Sia revealed a blue star pearl, saying they were lucky since both shamans carried one. The protagonist took a deep breath and asked if the man was really dead, because he intended to claim the item. His sister explained that he had to retrieve the pearl from the man's brain, otherwise the beasts would take it instead. The protagonist was stunned, thinking to himself how lightly these girls treated such matters, as if they were just out enjoying ice cream. His sister called for him to hurry, warning that more white ghosts would soon return. As they walked through the snow, they came across the corpses of the entire explorer team. A chill ran down the protagonist's spine as he realized all the members had been wiped out. Soon after, they found the body of the group's captain. The sight made the protagonist's stomach churn, and he covered his mouth to keep from vomiting at the gruesome scene. His sister remarked that it was their own fault. The shaman cub they carried had a mark on it. Because of that, no matter where they went, the white ghosts would pursue them. She added that if they had abandoned the cub, they might have survived. Their companion complained that their star pearls were too few and asked if the explorers hadn't left any behind. The sister explained they had likely used them all while running from the ghosts. At that point, Xia Yan turned to the protagonist and asked him to examine a human pearl. His sister questioned whether he wasn't afraid of it, since it came from a person. But he replied that it wasn't much different from a beast's pearl, except that it couldn't be absorbed. Suddenly, a system notification appeared before his eyes. The screen said something was being detected, and his eyes glowed as the reflection of the purple pearl shimmered across them. He was shocked. Everyone had said it was impossible to absorb human pearls. Yet, the one he held began to shine brightly, radiating a powerful violet energy. The quality of the star bead contains the attributes of the star. Leading among them are Asura Flash, Endurance, Blessing, and Decoy, which are of bronze quality that can be upgraded, combined, and absorbed. And Flame Mark, Explosive Flame, Chime, and Marking Seal, which are of silver quality, can also be upgraded, combined, and absorbed. When the protagonist read this, he thought that with his current strength of the Stardust phase, he could embed at most 2 more star skills into his slot. The Chime and Marking Seal were a combination and compatible skills of the group's healing star. These were the perfect choices. The protagonist called his sister Han Zhongshe and Xia Yan. He said that he felt the kind of healing star skill in the star pearl he was holding. He thought he could absorb it. The two were surprised, and his sister asked what he was saying. He was able to extract the star skill coming from a person's star pearl. That certainly wasn't good news for other awakened beings. Sia was shocked and said that it was a world-breaking method that was too unreal. He even asked if what he really felt were just healing star skills and nothing else. The protagonist shook his head and thought that he needed to hide an ace and not casually reveal that he already had an internal star map. He answered Sia that he was simply more sensitive to healing-type star skills. He even thanked the two of them because he had come this far. As teammates, they were closely bonded together as a group with shared interests. Based on contribution, this star pearl would go to Xia Yan. Xia Yan moved slightly closer to the protagonist and told him he didn't need to be polite. He should quickly absorb it and show his elder sister this wonderful thing. And if he really could do it, then he would also have a golden future tightly within his grasp. When he heard that, he didn't hesitate anymore, broke the star pearl, and then the purple energy burst out in front of him. This energy was seen flowing into the bodies of Xia Yan and his elder sister. Xia Yan realized that the two skills appeared in one star slot. These were the Chime and Marking Seal. She couldn't believe that the protagonist had done it. The scene shifted to the garden apartment complex where the protagonist lived. When they entered their house, his elder sister immediately took off her clothes and hung them on the wall. Then she looked at their picture with their parents. With a sad voice, she said to their mother and father that they had returned. Their journey to the snowfield had truly matured the protagonist. She even talked about the protagonist being a naturally born genius. His 3-star slots contained 2-star skills each. The protagonist suddenly said that he was going to his room to wash himself, because if he didn't take a bath right away, he would rot from his foul smell. His sister didn't answer, but quietly observed him. Afterward, she turned her attention back to the picture of their parents. She also said that the protagonist was destined to become a radiant awakener like the two of them. But as his elder sister, could she really protect him? Meanwhile, inside the protagonist's room, there were many flying insects. He was disgusted by what he saw and thought that his room was extremely dirty and messy. He even covered his nose as he picked up his rotting socks. Then he immediately threw them into the trash bin. He thought that with this much trash, how long would it take him to clean it all? After 3 hours, he had completely cleaned his room until it almost sparkled in its cleanliness, with no more clutter. He sighed in relief while smiling, saying that he almost died from exhaustion. He forcefully laid his body on the bed but quickly got up again. He thought that he still needed to fix the other things that the body's owner had left behind. He pressed the button of his computer. And when it began to turn on, a video suddenly played where the former owner of the body was introducing himself. Arrogantly, he said that on that day, he had officially awakened. They should remember his name, Jiang Xiao, the future god of the North River's dimensional realms. The protagonist was slightly annoyed at what he was watching. The former body's owner kept saying that while some parents joked that children were picked up from the trash, he was truly picked up from the trash. He introduced his mother, Zhang Hongye, a gentle and beautiful woman. Now, look at his name. On the day his mother saw him was also the day her dog died. That dog's name was Xiaopi, so she passed the dog's name on to him. He was grateful because that dog was such a cute one. The protagonist gritted his teeth in anger when he heard that. He even said in his mind that it was a ridiculously casual origin of a name. In his serious watching, he was startled when there was a loud knock on his door. He almost broke into a sweat and turned around. When he looked, his elder sister appeared, calling him to eat. Suddenly, his sister's eyes widened at what she saw in her brother's room, and she asked if he was the one who cleaned it. The protagonist answered with a smile and a thumbs up. After that, the scene shifted to the kitchen, where food was already prepared on their table. The protagonist was delighted by what he saw and by the smell of the food. He remembered, feeling excited, that in his previous life he only ate instant noodles. While scooping rice from the rice cooker, his sister said that Xia Yan would come tomorrow to pick him up. They would conduct 5 days of special training for the upcoming final stage of the military training. The protagonist quickly reached for the bowl of rice and asked why the military training would end so soon. Couldn't he train for a few more days? One-on-one, he thought, was more effective than one against many. His sister disagreed. He needed to participate in the military training and show off at the final performance. Only there. That was the only way for him to be qualified to join their group acceptably. Afterward, she told him to eat, adding that Xia Yan would explain the other details. But she added as an afterthought that he should delete the strange things in his blog. The protagonist grew annoyed, repeatedly saying that he had already deleted them. While they were eating, his sister handed him a piece of meat and told him to eat plenty of it. The protagonist happily ate and said that this was the feeling of a home where someone cared for him and where there was also delicious food. After they finished eating, the protagonist took the bowls and told his sister to rest and that he would handle the washing. His sister was pleased and looked at him with a smile on her lips. The protagonist cheerfully washed the dishes while humming a tune and swaying his body slightly. A few minutes later, he smilingly grabbed the towel hanging on the wall. But he suddenly froze and turned his attention to the pictures stuck on the fridge. He curiously examined them and thought that his sister looked very cute when she was young, and their father and mother looked elegant. The parents of the original owner had disappeared after entering another world several years ago. He wondered if there was still a chance to see them again. The scene shifted to where someone suddenly put an arm around the protagonist's shoulder. Xia Yan arrived, saying that she would take the boy for now and return him after a week. As they walked away, the protagonist angrily told Sha Yan to stop hugging his neck. Sha Yan angrily replied, calling him a little bastard and telling him to call her elder sister. As they walked out of the apartment, the protagonist said that their ages weren't that far apart. Meanwhile, in a room where a mysterious man stood in front of a window, he silently observed and watched the protagonist with Sha Yan. The scene then shifted to a huge mansion where Sha Yan lived. This was the Zonghua Mencheng community, and a hand repeatedly rang the doorbell. When he entered, he was greeted by a muscular man wearing boxing gloves. Sha Yan introduced him to the protagonist as Lei Jin. For the next 5 days, he would be his coach. After the 5 days of special training, he would go to school. He needed to be included in the first-year class as soon as possible and be chosen as a student representative. It didn't matter if he became the top or not. What mattered was that he could show his worth and be noticed by the leader. He was asked if he understood. The protagonist agreed while sweating. After that, it was explained that his phone would be confiscated during the special training. She happily reported that they would have 3 meals a day, then bid him goodbye with a kiss and said she would go upstairs to rest. The scene shifted to Sha Yan taking a bath. After coming out of the bathroom and adjusting her towel, she felt a pleasant sensation. She even smiled slightly while wrapping her hair with the towel. But the pleasant feeling of bathing was interrupted when she noticed the protagonist's phone lying on the table. She paused for a moment while staring at it, then revealed a mischievous smile as if she were planning something bad. The protagonist's older sister was throwing powerful punches at the punching bag. With her last strike, the punching bag was almost thrown off because of the strength she used. It fell to the floor as she was drenched in sweat and panting. While wiping her sweat, she looked at her phone, thinking that perhaps her younger brother was also training. Suddenly, her phone rang and a special notification appeared. Wang Xiaopi, our protagonist, had just released a new vlog. He posted a picture of Sha Yan's thigh, saying in his post that he was happy to be at Sister Sha's house and that Sha's long legs looked beautiful. He even said that this was the first day he felt love for Sha. When his older sister read this, her brows furrowed in anger. The scene shifted to show Gang Junwei's sword, which had 25 star slots. Its star map contained a Tang sword with 2 bronze star skills, 3 silver, and 1 gold. His star power was at the nebula stage. Like Han Zhongshe and Sha Yan, he too was a destined child. He was in his 3rd year of high school but currently in his 1st year. Our protagonist wanted to challenge him, but he first needed to win the championship in the military training performance against the leading group of high school students. Meanwhile, the protagonist's star power was triggered. A blue energy was being released from him as he cultivated. This effect sped up his accumulation and recovery of star power. Suddenly, he woke up and realized that his Stardust Stage Level 3 had advanced to Stardust Stage Level 4. He was overjoyed at the breakthrough, thinking that he had leveled up, and with just 1 more level, he could defeat Gao Zhanwei. After his training, he opened the lunch box filled with vegetables. He almost broke down upon seeing it. This was Xiaoyan's special nutrition meal. He forced himself to eat it, nearly moved to tears because he did not like it. It wasn't bad for him, but it wasn't tasty either. Suddenly, he missed eating instant noodles. Because he wanted to join his sister's group, he had to endure. His coach noticed his reaction to the food. While watching him, he thought about how this boy woke up at 4 a.m. and trained until 9 p.m. He never complained, was not mischievous, and always exceeded targets. The protagonist was diligent in his training and seriously followed everything written in his book. His trainer thought that at 16 years old, it was as if this boy had been locked in a basement and trained in a demonic way. Anyone would go crazy under such conditions. This was the first time he had ever seen a child this determined. Meanwhile, the trainer almost gagged at the vegetables he himself was eating. He even said he missed eating barbecue. The next morning, in the Shaw family mansion, inside a room, a man was shouting, asking if they were sure there was no mistake. Who was brought into the house, and why wasn't he informed immediately? This furious man on the phone was Sha Yan's father, Sha Shanhai. When his wife heard him, she asked why he was so angry. Sha Yan's mother's name was Hezian. Before Sha Yan's father hung up the phone, he told his wife that their princess had brought a boy into the house. His wife was slightly pleased and asked if it wasn't a good thing that their daughter had found love. She asked more. Who was this boy? What was his character like, and who did he resemble? Sha Yan's father answered that he had seen the boy already, and his name was Jiang Xiao, the young son of the Han family. Sha Yan's mother's eyes widened in shock upon hearing the name. She told her husband she did not agree for their daughter to marry him. Her husband angrily replied that he did not agree either. But he showed her the phone and told her to look, because 4 days had already passed since their daughter brought the boy home. On the phone was the protagonist's post, saying he liked Sha Yan. Sha Yan's father added that every day the boy updated about how much he liked their daughter. Sha Yan's mother almost cried, begging her husband to go immediately to their daughter to find out the truth. She feared that if they were even 2 days late, their daughter might already be giving birth. Sha Yan's father was baffled at her words, thinking she was overreacting. Meanwhile, under the blazing sun outside the Sha family mansion, the protagonist continued his training. He threw punches that struck his trainer's arm. Blow after blow landed as his trainer shouted at him to go faster. The trainer asked him how he could possibly knock down his opponent with such weak strength. When the protagonist heard this, he poured all his power into his fist and unleashed a strong punch. It directly struck his trainer's arm, forcing him to stagger back several meters. The trainer smiled at him, telling him that he did well. With his fist still clenched, the protagonist gave a slight smile at the result of his effort. He thought to himself that he had finally managed to break through his trainer's defense without using star power. His trainer was pleased with him, immediately approached, wrapped an arm around his neck, and told him he was a good kid and that this was the style he liked. He advised him to just keep doing this and he would succeed in whatever he wanted to achieve. Suddenly, an old maid, Auntie Jo, appeared before them and asked for their attention. The trainer was surprised and asked if dinner was going to be served early today. Before the maid could answer, Sha's father suddenly entered through the door. He was shocked by what he saw. Even the protagonist was surprised when he recognized who had arrived. 10 minutes earlier, when the maid opened the door, she was shocked to see that the one who had arrived was Sha Yan's father. He immediately asked where his daughter Yan Yan was. The maid replied that it had been 3 days since the young lady left with Miss Han and went to the snowfield again. The father was pleased and said that was good, as long as they knew where the child had gone. He even praised the Han family's daughter, saying she was kind and motivated. After that, he asked if it was true that nothing had changed in their house today. The maid agreed, but added that 4 days ago, a boy had moved into their house. He was directly taken to the basement by Sha, and until now, he had not come out. The father was shocked and began to think badly, wondering if his daughter had illegally locked the boy inside. In his mind, he imagined the protagonist imprisoned in a cell. He could not believe that his precious daughter would confine someone. Even if Jiang Xiao had a bad attitude and was notorious, he was still the son of his best friend. Disagreeing with marriage was one thing, but abusing someone like this was unacceptable. His thoughts were interrupted when the maid spoke. She said that the young lady had hired a personal trainer for the protagonist. They lived and ate together in the basement, and every day they trained. Whenever she brought food, she saw the protagonist covered in bruises and drenched in sweat. Mr. Shaw's eyes widened, unable to believe that Jiang Xiao was training. The maid asked if he wanted to go down and see, and since it was also dinner time, she offered to serve him food there. Mr. Shaw fell silent, thinking he might have been exaggerating too much. The maid added that they would let the boy out before it got dark. Mr. Shaw turned around and told the maid that since he was already there, why not go down and take a look? In his mind, he thought that he needed to change his view of what his daughter Yan Yan had said about bringing the protagonist into the house. He even wondered why his daughter hadn't told him that she was bringing a personal trainer. Back to the present, where Mr. Shaw walked around and confirmed that the protagonist was truly training. The protagonist remembered that this man was his uncle, Uncle Shaw. Mr. Shaw was delighted that even though nearly 10 years had passed since they last saw each other, the boy still recognized him. After that, he invited the protagonist to come out of the basement and rest. He said that, as his uncle, he would show him a little concern this year, and that it was his fault. The protagonist scratched the back of his neck in embarrassment and said that his uncle's words were serious. He remembered that the original owner of the body had a proud personality, but the man before him was very kind and generous, almost like his sister Han Zhongshe. Outside the Shaw mansion, the sun was nearly setting. The trainer stretched his arms and shouted that the sunset looked beautiful, especially if there was barbecue. Then he turned to the maid and said he wanted to eat skewers. When the protagonist heard this, his eyes practically sparkled. As he walked closer to the maid, he was drooling while repeatedly saying, "Barbecue." Before long, barbecue sticks were already cooking over the hot grill. The protagonist was overjoyed while eating, repeatedly saying how delicious it was. Meanwhile, Mr. Shaw looked on seriously while drinking. He slightly bowed his head, smiling, and told the protagonist that his uncle was truly pleased with the great change in him. He thought that his parents would also be happy once they learned of this. When the protagonist heard this, he thought of the original body's family. They had been gone for several years, and only a few memories of them remained with the original owner. After thinking for a while, he called out to Uncle Shaw and asked if there was a chance for people who had disappeared into another dimension to return. Uncle Shaw replied that no one knew, because the appearance of the dimension gate was mysterious. There was still much they did not know, waiting to be discovered, and the pioneer group that their family was part of had been specially formed for this purpose. Because new dimensional gates were frequently appearing in this world, it brought fear to many people. And in order to investigate the properties of extra-dimensional space, an organization called the Pioneer Corps was formed. The team was composed of military forces and naturalized foreign players. Once a new dimensional gate appeared, they would immediately enter and assess the danger, examine the resources, and determine what existed inside. They checked whether the materials and organisms there were useful to humans, whether the creatures were too ferocious, whether the environment exceeded human capability, whether there was a possibility for humans to live there, or whether it needed to be destroyed completely. For example, the snowfield they had gone to. This meant that the pioneers shed blood, sweat, and even gave their lives to conduct investigations. Only then did the subsequent official development and opening of extra-dimensional space to the outside world occur. The Pioneer Corps was the most dangerous team, but also the greatest. And his parents belonged to them, pioneers who became his role models, giving him a reason to work hard in the future. The protagonist once again caught Mr. Shaw's attention and asked where the alternate dimension was where his parents had disappeared. Mr. Shaw replied that he could not go there yet, but he could tell him the name. It was the Dragon Cave, where two massive dragons covered in blue energy could be found. Mr. Shaw also advised him to try to become strong. Someday, he would be able to go to the Dragon Cave and find the only way to obtain an explanation. The protagonist gripped the stick in his hand tightly while staring at the barbecue, thinking about the Dragon Cave. Mr. Shaw suddenly coughed deliberately and added that in just 2 days, he would be entering school. The protagonist said that Shaw Yan told him she would take him to school tomorrow. Mr. Shaw shook his head and said that his daughter was too strict, and training should be more moderate. The protagonist replied that Shaw Yan was doing him good, and that it was he himself who asked for such difficult training. Mr. Shaw frowned and thought that he had only said his daughter was wrong, but why did it feel like the boy was protecting her? He then forced a smile and told the protagonist that his daughter had grown up. He no longer wanted to meddle in the affairs of young people, but they should focus on their studies and not on love. He even asked the protagonist if he understood. The protagonist was confused and immediately asked what he was talking about regarding love. As Mr. Shaw recalled the times he read the protagonist's vlog posts, he asked if he was not Jiang Xiao, who posted vlogs every day about his relationship with his daughter, from the first day, second, third, and fourth. The protagonist replied in confusion that yes, he was Jiang Xiao, but Shaw Yan had taken his phone on the first day of training. Mr. Shaw was shocked by what he heard and asked if that was true. The fifth day of training arrived. The protagonist sat quietly as a window system appeared, triggering abundant star power. While meditating, he gathered blue energy throughout his body. He thought that his star power had been stuck at Stardust stage level 4, and it was not rising. He believed that every 5 levels was a small bottleneck. A notification appeared stating that his current star power was Stardust stage level 4. He thought that in order to maximize the benefits, it was best to save the skill points until he reached the bottleneck. His meditation was suddenly interrupted when his trainer arrived and called him. He was informed that his training was finished and that the trainer would be transferring to a new employer. The protagonist said goodbye to his trainer, but suddenly, he was shocked and his eyes widened when he saw his sister, Han Zhongxie, smiling at him. He smiled and asked his sister if they had returned from the snowfield. His sister nodded as a reply and handed him 4 blue star pearls. The protagonist was surprised and puzzled by what his sister gave him. She explained that those were white ghost witch star beads. The protagonist almost stuttered, unable to believe that she had given him 4 pieces. As he gazed at them, he thought that his sister had killed all the white witches in the snowy plains. Suddenly, his sister jokingly asked if that was still not enough, and if it wasn't, she would find another way to get more. The protagonist was speechless, shyly staring at his sister, clearly shocked at what he had just heard. The chapter ends here. Watch out for our upcoming uploads. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll always be updated on our future videos.